6:06 p.m. Pursuant to Executive Order N-25-20 and N-29-20, members of the Planning Commission and staff are participating in this meeting via video link, Zoom, and/or teleconference. This is not an in-person meeting. Members of the public may observe this meeting on the City of Hawthorne website or on YouTube. This time we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Commissioner Caravello. Please, sir.
Okay, right hand over your heart. Please begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
And
and
to
to the republic for which it stands,
and
one
one
nation,
nation
under God,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice for all.
justice for all.
thank you very much. Will the secretary please call the roll, please?
Is Chairperson Smith,
Present.
Vice Chairperson Alshanable, she's absent. Commissioner Ortiz,
Present?
Commissioner Caravello,
Present.
and Commissioner Richard is absent.
Okay.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Oral communication. This is the time for oral communications. Because this meeting is a virtual meeting, members of the public who wish to participate were asked to call or email the planning department no later than 5:00 p.m. today, noting the item on which the member wants to speak. This information was provided on the agenda posted in compliance with the Brown Act on Friday, August 14th, 2020. At this time, if there were any messages left for oral communication, staff will ask the individual to unmute themselves if they wish to participate through Zoom or read messages for those individuals who provided written comments. Remarks are still limited to 3 minutes in duration. Staff, is there any participation from the public for oral communications?
We haven't received any for oral communications.
Okay, thank you. Now have the Planning Commission and Airport Zoning Commission consent calendar. There are no items. We'll recess the Airport Zoning Commission, and now we have the Planning Commission consent calendar. Number 1 is the introduction of the new city manager, Mr. Eric B. Lee. Mr. Lee, we welcome you to the Planning Commission meeting, and you now have the floor.
Thank you. Well, good evening, Commissioners and Chair Smith. It's my pleasure to join you at the front end of your meeting tonight. I've been with the city for a couple months, and my hope is that by this time I would have met you and we'd be meeting in person, but obviously that hasn't happened yet. Just really wanted to introduce myself and let you know that really appreciative of the work, the important work the commission does. A little bit about myself. I've been working in the South Bay for the past 2 years. I served as the executive director of the South Bay Regional Public Communications Authority, which is the regional 911 center that's headquartered in Hawthorne and serves most of the South Bay cities. Prior to that, I worked for 21 years with the city of Beverly Hills, both in the Public Works Department and in the Police Department. And so I have a good background on municipal operations, and I'm just very excited to have been hired by the City Council to help lead the city of Hawthorne. I know we've got a great planning staff that really is dedicated to the work that the commission is trying to accomplish, and I hope to be as supportive of that as I can. So that's really all I've got. You have any questions for me?
No,
When did you leave the city of Beverly Hills?
In 2018.
Okay. Yeah, I just started working there last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we need to compare notes at some point.
Welcome aboard, Eric. I have no questions for you, so glad you're with us.
Great.
Well, welcome aboard. I look forward to meeting you in person.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Well, have a great meeting, and I will see you soon.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Now we have consideration of Planning Commission and Airport Zoning Commission minutes for the regular meeting of March 4th, 2020. Anyone make a motion to approve? If not, I will make a motion to approve minutes of March 4th, 2020.
I'll second.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, would you please take the roll?
Sure. Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Alcinable absent, Commissioner Ortiz,
Yes.
and Commissioner Caraveo,
Yes.
and Commissioner Richards is absent. Minutes are approved.
Thank you. Next, we'll have consideration of Planning Commission and Airport Zoning Commission minutes for the regular meeting of March 18, 2020. Anyone want to make a motion to approve?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, then motion made and seconded. Please call for the vote.
Chairperson Smith
Yes.
and Vice Chairperson Alcinable is absent, Commissioner Ortiz,
Yes.
Commissioner Caraveo,
Yes.
and Commissioner Richards is absent. Minutes are approved, 3-0.
Thank you. Continued public hearings. Number 1, variance application number 2020 VA01. Now is the time and place to open the public hearing to consider variance application number 2020 VA01. Senior Planner Maria Meharek will present the staff report. Ms. Rico. Okay, screen.
Good evening, Commissioners. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Just want to make sure. Perfect. Good evening, Commissioners. I will be presenting variance application 2020 VA01, and it is a request to permit on the perimeter of the required front yard of the property located at 4841 West 118th Place, a 3-foot fence that reduces the 95% open to view requirement for a fence and hedge above 18 inches. And there we go. So as you can see from the vicinity map, the property is on the north side of the street at 118th Place, and it's bounded by Felton Avenue to the west and Inglewood Avenue to the east. The zoning of the property is R3. In fact, the entire section of that street is R3, other than, as you can see off of Inglewood Avenue, those are C3 commercial zoned lots. There are several uses along the street that are residentially zoned. There's approximately 39 residential parcels, and this includes the subject site. 23 of these parcels, as you can see on your screen, are highlighted in blue, and those are multifamily dwellings. So there's 2 or more dwellings on those properties. 16 of those parcels are considered single-family dwellings, and those are highlighted in red. And those are essentially just 1 unit on the property, no more than that. And there's 16 of those, as you can see from this slide. The existing site conditions for this property is, as you can see from the photographs on this slide, we are looking east from this slide, and this is the hedge. The larger photo is a view of the apartment building right next to it, and it's actually 3 units. They're condominiums, and the parking is considered semi-subterranean. And the other small photo above that is the hedge as it stands now. It has completely filled in and completely obstructed the view. The photos on the bottom of your screen are looking west, and the same situation you can see when they initially were planted and the current conditions where they have completely filled in and block the view. And that is the applicant's driveway looking east. There are required findings for a variance that must be made in order for a variance to be granted. And there's 4 specific ones, which I would like to go through each one of them. Number 1, there are special circumstances that are applicable to a property that must involve shape, topography, location, or the surroundings that don't generally apply to the other properties within the same vicinity or zone. And as you recall from the previous slide, I did make a point to highlight how many other residential units are there, specifically single-family homes. This property, there's no unusual circumstances that are applicable to this property, such as the shape or topography. The parcel is generally flat, as you saw from that photograph, and it is also included in your staff report. And it's regular dimensions. The lot is a typical slope. It's generally flat, and other properties in the vicinity are as well. The location and surroundings are also typical of other properties in this area. The condos adjacent to them, had they not had this partial subterranean parking, it would still be of the same elevation regardless, had they just had the garages at the same level. So granting a variance would provide the property a privilege that is not offered to other single-family dwellings with the same or similar circumstances as the subject property. The parcels with the single-family dwellings in the same circumstances would experience the same level of perceived exposure from the street as that experienced by the applicant's property, as you saw from the aerial and driving through that street. So that is the very first finding that needs to be made, and staff was unable to make that finding. Number 2, the second finding is the variance necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of the property itself, for the right for them to utilize or that is possessed by other properties in the same vicinity or zone, and whom may have special circumstances if this is denied to the property in question. So in reviewing the request and looking at the circumstances around this property, the applicant is not prevented from enjoying and using the property in the same manner as other single-family homes in the vicinity and the zone. Several of the other homes on this block experience the same exact circumstances as that of the property. And in that, they are adjacent to 2-story multifamily buildings. In fact, the property to the east of the applicant's property is right next to a 2-story multifamily building. So staff was unable to make that finding as well. Finding number 3, the granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in the vicinity and zone which this property is located. The issue with the fence and the hedge is that the obscuring nature of it, in addition to the height of the hedge, it creates a sight visibility issue for the vehicles exiting the property directly west, which is the condos that are next door, and from the property itself, from the applicant's property. As you recall from the photos, the hedge and fence completely block the view as a vehicle can exit. So not having the ability to view oncoming vehicles traveling along 118th Place and pedestrians walking along the sidewalk can result in serious harm if they are not been able to see. So staff was unable to make that finding as well. So the last finding is that the granting of the variance will not adversely affect the comprehensive general plan. Our comprehensive general plan is very clear in Goal 1.0. And it basically states that we must minimize the hazards to the public health, safety, and welfare and prevent the loss of life, bodily injury, property damage resulting from natural or man-made occurrences. Because of this general plan goal, the goals and policies of the safety element, this is where this is found, in the safety element, and they are intended to provide the community with an acceptable level of safety and protection. This hedge and fence would create a hazard to public health, safety, and welfare for drivers and pedestrians. Conversely, it should be noted that the hedge and fence, as screening of the private property, does not prevent any dangers to the property owner and may actually exacerbate the concerns of personal safety. There is no gate or anything to prevent anyone from accessing this property. As you recall from the photo, it's wide open and to go in from the side near the front door. So there is nothing to prevent access, and therefore staff was unable to make that finding as well. I wanted to go through very quickly what are the grounds of granting a variance. And the first thing is that it must be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning laws. This is not in the sense that it is in adverse of the regulations of the fence and hedge regulations of the Hawthorne Municipal Code. It also states that it should not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements. And as I mentioned, it is an issue in that visibility is blocked from vehicles exiting these two driveways. The other variance is the unnecessary hardship that it could create. So the finding has to be made that there is an unnecessary hardship, and the strict enforcement of the zoning limitation would cause unnecessary hardship. The burden of showing this hardship is on the applicant. Staff has not found that this was shown, as other properties that are single-family homes that are very similar to this encounter the same circumstances, and therefore they don't have a hedge or a fence that blocks complete view. The hardship places the property owner at a disadvantage, that it is peculiar to this particular lot or is distinguished from other properties in the same area. As we went through one of the findings, as you know, this property, there is nothing distinct in the shape, the topography, and its location as that of other properties with single-family homes. The last thing that would need to be found, of course, is the special circumstances. Does this deprive the parcel of privileges that are enjoyed by other properties in the vicinity and under the same identical zoning classification? The regulations of the Hawthorne Municipal Code for a fence do not prevent the applicant or the property from being enjoyed in the same manner as any other identical properties in the vicinity and in the zoning classification. So therefore, staff is recommending that based on all of the analysis of the issues, that the Planning Commission adopt the Planning Commission Resolution 2020-15 that denies the variance for the fence and hedge as it is proposed by the applicant. We do recommend some modifications to the fence and hedge in the following way. As you can see from this slide, we would recommend that the applicant remove the top 3 slats that are located at the back side of the fence to allow slightly more visibility. Now, in terms of the hedge, we do recommend that some of those trees be removed along the perimeter, and the remaining trees must be trimmed and maintained to allow the visibility of the vehicles exiting the neighbor's driveway and that of the property's driveway. By removing these trees, it would permit the visibility. that is required by the municipal code and still allow some privacy from the street. And with that, staff concludes the report. If you have any questions for me.
Is the applicant available?
Yes, the applicant is, I believe, in the waiting room
Okay.
to speak.
First of all, does the planning commission itself have any questions for the staff? This is the time for questions of staff only.
Through the chair, I have a question for staff. Maria,
Yeah.
you said the existing fence is how high? It's approximately, looks like it's maybe 3 feet or something like that?
Right, the fence is about 3 feet and the
Okay.
hedge is up to 6 feet now.
Okay, and you said staff recommends removal of the last 3 slats to bring it down to what? Because the code requirement is it 2.8 or something like that, or?
It's 18 inches that can be
okay.
solid, obviously give or take a couple of inches. And the rest has to be 95% open to view. If you can see from the picture of the fence, it has slats in the front and then it has slats in the back to cover up those gaps in between of the ones that are in the front. And by removing at least 3 of them from the rear of this fence, it will allow more light to come through. And that is why staff is recommending just removal of those from the back side of that fence.
I guess I'm not following you, the backside. By backside, you're still talking about the front, right?
Right. So can you see my arrow?
Oh, okay,
moving?
because it's solid.
Right.
I see.
You
Okay.
see what I mean? So there's
Yeah.
slats in the front, and then there's slats at the behind it
Okay.
to cover up those gaps in between the fence.
Okay. So, oh wow, so it's only 18 inches high, the entire front edge
Right.
that you could have as solid.
Right.
Okay. I was not aware of that. That's pretty limiting. Okay.
Yeah.
No further questions.
Thank you. Any of the other commissioners have any questions for staff?
Not at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present and do they wish to speak?
They are present. They're in the waiting room. So at this time, if you're ready for her name is Miss Nadia Pandolfo. Miss Pandolfo, if you want to unmute yourself, you can join the meeting.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Hello? Can you hear
Yes.
me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
hear you.
Yes, we can, yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Yes, I would like to speak. Thank you for taking this into consideration. And thank you to Maria for giving a detailed presentation. I feel I want to just go through the criteria, the 4 criteria, because I have I've constructed a rebuttal to some of those issues, and I think that the staff report fails to take into account, first of all, my own public safety, and second of all, that I am arguing that my property does have a special circumstance because it is the only single-family residence on the block that borders a partially subterranean parking lot, and it's also bordering the tallest building on the street because it's actually 2.5 stories, and it's not just 2 stories. Even the house to the east of mine, which is a single-family, level residence, is bordering on a similar property, but their property doesn't border on a partially subterranean parking lot. And because of the subterranean parking lot, I'm arguing that their visibility obstruction is self-imposed because they're exiting their parking lot from a sunken level. And you can see on the wall that's bordering the property that's in the top left picture, they're coming from a lower aspect, and that does make it different than the other properties on the street. The other reason why I'm arguing that my property is different than the other single-family residences, even though there are, I believe, 14 or 18 of them, is that I'm the only single woman living alone in a single-family residence on the block that I'm aware of. And I've already had problems with predators in the area. I've already filed a police report. And in fact, the police department has written a letter saying that they recommend that the variance should be granted for the fence and the hedge. Also, I don't believe there is a site visibility at all. There haven't been any problems. The people pulling out of the driveway that is in the building directly to the west they pull out front facing, and you can easily see anyone walking on the sidewalk from either direction. And for my driveway, it's the same thing. No one has ever had a problem. I've never had a problem being able to see pedestrians or cars coming down the street. So the other issue about that is that, and this goes to public safety, is in Los Angeles and most other surrounding cities in the area, the ordinance is 3.5 feet for a fence and up to 6.5 feet. So they don't see, obviously, a public safety issue for people exiting their driveways in the city of Los Angeles, which has more traffic and more pedestrians. So I don't, agree that the fence causes a public safety hazard to anyone. And we're talking about just the front part of the fence as well, which really isn't causing a site visibility problem. And so, those are the main points. And the other two criteria, I believe that I meet too, because first of all, the criteria about being able to enjoy my property, and I believe that having this 2.5-story building, which is taller than the rest of the buildings, and especially since it has three-story unit buildings, they all look directly into my property, and they can see into my windows. In fact, the one neighbor who complained can still see directly into my windows, even with the hedges. And he often looks into my property and makes comments from his windows and whatever, and I feel like I have no privacy at all. I've also had people walking directly from the street up to the windows, looking in the windows before I put the hedges. So I do believe it provides extra security since I put the hedges and the fence. And by the way, the reason why it was already constructed is because the contractor who I hired mistakenly believed the ordinance was the same as the city of Los Angeles and that a 3-foot fence was permissible. And I had just moved to the area from Los Angeles, it's the first home I ever bought, so this is my first experience with something like this. And I'm sorry that it wasn't done the proper way from the beginning, because I wanted to do it the proper way, but I had no experience with it, and I mistakenly believed the word of the contractor without researching it myself. So basically, it does provide security, unlike what Maria said. She argued that there is actually a gate, which you can't really see in the picture, but there is a gate that can be locked that, before entering the yard. So it does provide extra security. I have had less problems with predatory individuals since I put the fence, and I feel more able to enjoy the property, because before I wasn't able to enjoy my property at all. I had to keep my blinds closed all the time, and I lived in fear that something was going to happen to me. And I also couldn't use my front yard, and my dogs couldn't use the front yard. So I felt very unsafe living there alone without having the fence. And I felt very exposed and vulnerable. So I think it says something that the police department sees that there's a valid safety concern for me, and that should be taken into consideration. I also think that the fact that the neighbor who's directly to the west to me has dug underground and built very high, that should be considered a special circumstance. those are the two main issues that I want to raise that I think make my property and my situation different. I think, you know, being a single woman living in the city by herself, it presents a unique hardship if you don't have any extra security measures and people are able to easily walk right up to your windows and see what you're doing, and including your neighbors are able to see from their property into your windows. So, and like I said before, I don't think that there is a safety hazard. It's very easy to see the pedestrians and the traffic. There's never been an incident. And, you know, as soon as the car approaches from the driveway, they can easily see both directions. And, you know, and I mean, one could argue that the side trees and the side fence create a visibility problem, but those are not in question. It's the front trees and the front fence which are posing the question. And my understanding of the ordinance is that it was for 18 inches of a solid fence, and above that 95% for safety and public safety regarding police being able to see through the property and be able to see if there's anything bad going on. And like I said, the police see that there is a safety hazard for me. And I think if that type of fence did produce a valid safety public hazard issue, it wouldn't be legal in the city of Los Angeles to have a 3.5-foot fence on someone's yard if people were crashing into pedestrians and cars when they were exiting their driveways. So I don't think that that's a realistic public safety hazard. As far as the other two criteria, I think, you know, I already raised the preservation and enjoyment. I feel that, you know, the building to my west does adversely affect my ability to enjoy my property. And also there's a 2-story building directly across the street from me as well, looking straight into my property. And as far as being adverse to the general plan, I think that it's not adverse to the general plan because, as I understand, having an 18-inch front fence that is solid and beyond that 95% visible doesn't have to do with the safety of cars exiting the driveway on either side. Rather, it has to do with the police's ability to be able to see through the property and see if there are any predatory individuals or people trying to escape the police behind that area. But the police did not raise that issue. So apparently they don't see the hedge and the fence to be a problem in that aspect. So I don't believe that it adversely affects the general plan. And I guess that's about it. If anyone has questions for me, you know, they could ask it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the commission on this issue? Staff, is there anybody else in the waiting room?
Maria,
I do not have anyone. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
do you have any email communication from other
Yes.
concerned citizens? Okay.
Yes, commissioners, I did receive one email communication dated today, 3:30, August 19, 2020 at 3:39 p.m. And it says, as Andrew Sukes was mentioning earlier to us, we would like to bring to your notice that Andrew and Lulit, owners of 4843 West 118th Place, see several new people entering the property with travel bags in question at 4841 118th Place. To our best knowledge, Manuel Garcia, Andrew Sukes, Lulit Skus, and Vedant Dadania, I apologize for not pronouncing the last name correctly, We have not seen the owner of 4841 West 118th Place in over a year on the property. We also don't know whether the property is rented or it's under Airbnb, etc., or who the new varying weekly visitors are to the property. Since the three of us cannot show up today at 6 p.m. on Zoom, we would like this email to be conveyed to the committee. Also, due to the water damage caused by her overwatering plants on the common wall, we have had to seek contractors to fix the water damage on the walls, which runs on the entire east side perimeter of the property. The pictures have been shared earlier. We have confirmation from multiple inspectors that the damage is caused solely due to the high pressure watering and planting of the large plants on the perimeter planted by the owners of 4841 West 118th Place and not using waterproofing. The repair costs are going to exceed over $10,000 to the three property owners of 4843, 4845, and 4847 West 118th Place. And to some extent, we would like to know how we can file for damages, ? Please don't hesitate to reach out to us in our or via their phone numbers or email us with any questions. That concludes the email that was submitted today.
Okay, thank you. So do any of my fellow commissioners have any final comment on this item or questions for staff?
I have a question
We
for
should ask the applicant if they have any response, if they wanted to respond to any of the comments that were made.
Yeah, I would like to respond. First of all, there's not an Airbnb at the house currently. Unfortunately, my mother has had several health issues and she's almost died. She spent almost 6 months in the hospital and lost her leg and is in a state of heart failure and awaiting a heart valve replacement surgery. So I've not been at the property very often, but I have gone back and forth, and currently my cousin is looking after the property and living there with her boyfriend and taking care of the property for me. So, you know, when I was living there, sometimes I had visitors, and I am interested in renting some of my rooms, sometimes to Airbnb, but I haven't been doing that for over 6 months. And I did speak with Maria about getting a permit to have a short-term rental at some point, perhaps in the future, but that isn't what I'm currently doing. And I'm hoping to get home as soon as my mother's health issues are resolved. So, and actually my neighbor knows that because I have been in communication with him. So he is aware of my mother's health condition. So, and he knows that that is the reason why I'm traveling. So that has to do with that. As far as the wall that he is complaining about, I don't think it's really related to the variance. And I actually don't water my lawn very much. It's on a timer for 10 minutes once a week in the winter and twice a week in the summer if the temperature goes above 100 or above 90, I would say. I have a gardener who works once a week who maintains the property, and he's looked at it and he's spoken to them about the issue with their wall. And, you know, he doesn't believe that the water damage is caused by the trees. There's also rain there's been a lot of rain in the past 2 or 3 years since I've lived there. And perhaps the wall does not have proper drainage to begin with. And perhaps the wall has not been properly maintained. The wall was built 30 years ago. And as far as I know, it already had patches and was attempted to be repaired before I ever moved in there. And I have tried to water my lawn to the minimal amount. So whatever water damage may have been caused, I mean, I believe I'm allowed to water my lawn with or without the trees. And the trees have only been there for 2 years. So I don't think that the trees are what's causing any damage to their wall, which is mostly just an aesthetic damage anyway. It needs to be repainted, basically. And it is 30 years old, like I said.
Okay, Thank you very much. So now at this time.
I would like to add, I'd like to add one more thing if possible. I'm sorry. I am willing to put in a drainage system possibly for the trees, but I don't really think it's my responsibility to maintain their wall. But I would do it out of a courtesy and just out of a, mutual interest, even though I believe that wall disproportionately benefits their property since they had to dig and make a subterranean parking lot.
Okay, thank you. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any final comments on the item or questions for staff?
I have a question for the applicant.
Okay.
I want to know when was this constructed and planted?
It was constructed and planted in 2017 in the fall, about in November, December.
Okay. And then was this in result to the, you said that there was like some predators in the area?
Yeah, there were. And also besides the predators, when I first moved into the house, I witnessed 2 people being arrested on the block. One person even escaped the police. I saw it with my own eyes. I was riding my bicycle down the street and the police were about to handcuff someone and he started running away and in the direction of my house. And, so I was a bit afraid. I didn't know the neighborhood very well and I felt pretty exposed. I had an experience several years ago living in the city of Beverly Hills where someone murdered someone in the house adjacent to mine and was hiding out in my backyard for several hours. And then, when the police were looking for him, they found him there. So, I just felt like I needed some additional security around the house living there alone. And it made me feel better. And it was the first thing I did when I moved in because I moved in September and after seeing 2 people getting arrested. And I had another stalker before I filed a police report who was looking in my windows. And another incident where my friend had parked her car in my driveway overnight and she was sitting in there and a man thought she was sleeping and came and opened her door and was staring at her. And then he ran away. And that happened in my driveway. So, I had a few things which made me feel a little bit unsafe in the beginning.
Okay. And so, and then the police report was filed January 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that
2020.
that was a man who was, approaching me on the street on that block. And he was, trying to, he knew what book I was reading. He had clearly been looking in my windows and been spying on me. He knew some other information about me as well. And that's what made me file the police report because I felt like it was actually even a bit more escalated than just a stranger. I considered even filing a restraining order, but it didn't end up getting to that because in the end of the day, he ended up leaving me alone and I didn't see him anymore. So, and I also, because I had to leave to take care of my mother, it wasn't as urgent of a problem for me. But it is a concern of mine to have men knowing that I live there alone, because I feel that it makes me a target. And, I do walk my dogs on the block, so I'm out of the house and people see me alone and then they know where I live. So that's what happened with the man who I filed the police report against. He saw me walking my dogs and he knew I lived there alone. And he was getting a little bit even more intrusive towards me than, it made me feel extremely unsafe. Like, he could have had bad intentions towards me. Like he was casing me.
And that's the incident that shows in the police report that was dated
Yeah,
December 9th,
that was the incident,
2019.
yeah. And he did actually expose himself to me once as well, yeah. So that was the most disturbing thing that happened, I would say, because it was more intrusive.
Okay,
I don't know what the person's name was. Yeah, I don't know what the person's name was and if he was a registered sex offender, but I did look up and there are several registered sex offenders in the neighborhood, which made me feel a bit even more unsafe.
Okay, that's all my questions for the applicant. I do have a question
Thank
for
you.
staff. I was
Yes.
trying to see, when did this case come to our attention as far as code enforcement?
Code enforcement first had a code enforcement case at the end of September, beginning of October, and apparently sent a notice out. They had to send a second notice, November-December timeframe, and the applicant reached out to code enforcement in January. And soon after that, the applicant did submit for the variance application. And
so
with COVID,
that
Go
was so pretty much towards the end of 2019.
correct.
Okay. And then the police report was filed. It looks like after the code enforcement.
Yes.
Okay. And then as far as our current codes, do we allow for fencing within the front yard?
We do allow fencing in the entire lot, but the required front yard fence, which would be obviously the front and 15 feet back, that is the required front yard per the municipal code. The regulations specify that they have to be 95% open to view. The first 18 inches can be solid, but the rest has to be open to view. The fence can be as high as 6 feet. That is permitted.
Okay, and that's within the first 15 feet.
Correct.
Okay, and then so
The perimeter.
Okay, and then after the 15 feet, then they can have it. It can be solid.
It can be solid after the 15 feet.
Okay. That's all of my questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ortiz, do you have any questions?
No questions for the applicant or for staff, but I would like to move to commission discussion.
Okay. Go right ahead.
Okay. So one of the things that I see is, these conditions that exist in this location, they're not unique, to the city. They happen throughout the city, especially in our city where we have different uses between properties. In some cases, there's other locations where we have single-family home and a 3-4 story apartment building right next to it. So I think we need to maintain the regulations and not try to accommodate to every single situation. So there are some things that I think that we can do that maybe I would propose for discussion and opinion of my other commissioners, and that would be, for example, leaving the existing fence at the 3-foot height, and then maybe talking about how the hedge is a reasonable distance inboard of the front of the property can be maintained to still give her privacy from the 2.5-story neighbor, especially where the building, that 2.5-story building is on par with her single-family home. So, but I do believe that that we should not allow the variance for keeping the hedges in the front. And that's it.
Anyone else want to comment on that?
I agree with Commissioner Ortiz on the hedges. I do feel that it can be detrimental to the people that are walking on the sidewalks. You know, they won't be able to see the cars in the driveway. The cars won't be able to see them. And then also, as far as safety for the person living at the residence, it'll be difficult for cops to come by and see onto the property if there's any incidences occurring on the property. And it looks like, you know, just based on this current configuration, you know, even with the hedges there, somebody could still come up to the windows, and it's not as protected. It sounds like our current code allows for fencing. It just has to be open. I believe, is it 90% or 94%? 95%. So that would allow for at least more protection that would be able to extend along the entire property line, and it wouldn't require variance, and it would also provide visibility onto the property for the police and also for the patrons using the sidewalk and the people driving into the driveway. And I wouldn't feel comfortable approving the hedges at that current height. And especially when we have another option of providing the fencing that's already allowed by code.
Through the chair, yeah, that's a really good point by the commissioner that I did forget to mention that, especially knowing that there is other options in the code that would provide for security. You know, there's nothing preventing the resident from putting a 95% open fence that's secure, even more secure than what she currently has now. So that's a big factor in this as well.
Okay, I will now formally close the public hearing on this item. Call on my fellow commissioners for a vote on the item. So do I have a motion?
Before you take a vote, I believe we skipped the request of the secretary if there are any documents that are to be placed in the record, such as late communications. I think we missed that. So you may want to just ask that of Mr. Bashmakian.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the late communication were the emails that were received which were read into the record earlier.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So commissioners, do I have a motion?
Motion to, before I put forth the motion, a question to staff, is there merit to allowing the hedges, or is that part of the request to allow higher hedges on the side yard?
The municipal code, through the chair, I apologize. The municipal code specifies that the front yard, the 15-foot required front yard, must be 95% open to view. So the hedges on the side that go back up 15 feet must also be 95% open to view.
Yes, and I'm more talking about the hedges beyond the 15 feet, because I believe it's about 15 feet where both properties or both structures align, it appears like.
Okay. Beyond the 15 feet, it can be solid.
Okay, so that's not a problem.
That is not a problem.
Okay, all right. So going back to the motion, I do make a motion to disallow the conditional use permit.
The motion actually, Commissioner, is to adopt the resolution that denies the variance for the fence and the hedge as proposed by the applicant. So I think that's the motion that you intend to make. Is that correct?
That is the motion, correct.
Okay, great.
And I'll second.
Okay.
Mr. Secretary, will you please
Okay.
call for the vote?
Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Alshanable is absent. Commissioner Ortiz,
Yes,
Commissioner Caraveo,
Yes.
and Commissioner Richard is absent. The motion passes 3-0. So there is a 10-day appeal period. The applicant could appeal the decision to the City Council. Staff could provide information about the appeal process later.
Okay, thank you. Next item is new public hearings. Zone Text Amendment 2019 ZA05, new resolution number 2020-14, changes to short-term rental ordinance. I understand from staff that this item is being continued to a date uncertain. We will move on to the next item. Okay. Their next item is Zone Text Amendment 2020 ZA04, Temporary Use Ordinance. Now is the time and place to open the public hearing to consider Zone Text Amendment number 2020 ZA04. It is my understanding that staff would like the Planning Commission to continue this public hearing to the next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting of September the 2nd at 6:00 p.m. Does anyone have any objection or discussion? If not, this item is continued to September 2nd, 2020 at 6:00 p.m. based on unanimous consent. Did anybody have any comments or discussion on that? Okay, then it will be moved. We now recess the Planning Commission, call back to order the Airport Zoning Commission. Airport Zoning Commission consent calendar, there are no items. Airport Zoning Commission new and continued public hearings, there are no items. I will now call back to order the Planning Commission concurrently with the Airport Zoning Commission. Non-public hearing items. Density Bonus Housing Agreement 2020 DB03. This is not a public hearing item. Pursuant to Chapter 17.17, the Planning Commission is required to review and approve density bonus housing agreement. Senior Planner Chris Palmer will present a staff report. Are you there?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to give a brief presentation, just kind of an overview of what's taking place with this project. Before you. Is a 100 unit.
Sorry, through the chair, apologies, Mr. Palmer, but just to let you know, it looks like I'm going to lose battery on my headset, so I will be calling in through a phone number, just in case you see a phone number coming in. Okay?
Should we pause and allow you to do that? Or?
I'll be able to listen. It's just I won't be able to speak. So, okay. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. The 109 square foot property is located on the southeast corner of Rosecrans and Kornblum and is in the C3 mixed use and R4 residential zoning district. In 2016, the Planning Commission heard and approved density bonus 2015 DB04, and it was for the request for a 100 unit mixed use project to sell the units, and 29 of those units were to be affordable at the moderate level. The applicant wanted to change some of the terms of the housing agreement, and also they wanted to now rent the units versus sell the units. So that's why this is back before the commission. Just to kind of give a reminder of what this was, is 100 unit, well, what it is now, it's a 100 unit apartment building. It's two components. One is an apartment complex, and another one is a detached 18,170 square foot commercial space, 2 stories, that'll be fronting on Rosecrans. And the affordability difference now is 8 units versus 29 units. The difference has to do with the fact that the original proposal was to sell the units, and the law allowed for moderate income earners to qualify for the affordable units. What he's asking to do now is to rent the unit, and the law doesn't offer the same opportunity. So the affordability level on this one is actually for very low income earners. And because that threshold is so low, the number of units also could be reduced. So he's now doing 8 of the total 100 units as of affordable income. This is just kind of an overview of the area. The top picture on your right is immediately adjacent to the property, approximately 3 stories, portion of it 35 feet tall. The one to the bottom is across the street and it has similar characteristics. The project is going to have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom stalls with parking, storage, and dishwasher and dryers within units. And the 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units have to be equally distributed amongst the affordable renters as well. This is just a rendering of what the apartment building would look like on Kornblum Avenue. And I want to just point out that the proposal is categorically exempt. It complies with proposed development standards, compatible with adjacent uses, and will not result in any negative impacts to surrounding neighborhoods. The Planning Department recommends to the Planning Commission that they adopt the attached resolution approving the density bonus. This concludes my report. I am available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the Planning Commission have any questions for staff? This is the time for questions of the staff only. Gentlemen, anybody?
I have a question. So are all the units going to be for sale? Not just all the units going to be for rent, not just the low-income units?
Correct. All 100 units are proposed to be rental.
Okay. And then do we know which units are going to be for low income? Is it going to be a mixture of single bedroom or 2 bedroom?
Yes, it's required by law that none of the units are identified differently as, they have to have all the same features, have to have all the same options. For example, he could not say that the top floor is non-affordable, he couldn't have any restrictions like that.
Just to note, staff has been working with the applicant, and we've gone back and forth, and at this time, correct me, Mr. Bashmaki, and I believe I sent you the email as well, the applicant is proposing to do 2 1-bedrooms, 4 2-bedrooms, and 2 3-bedrooms as affordable. That would be the composition, and that would be spelled out in the density bonus housing agreement.
That's correct. The applicant is basically spreading out the type of units so that it's providing opportunities for different types of units, size units, for the affordable categories.
Right.
Okay,
thank you. I didn't get that email, Commissioner. I apologize.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ortiz.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Yes, so on the same subject of the disbursement of the
affordable units, is there a requirement, or is there anywhere in the report that states where these units are going to go? For example, are the units, the 2 bedrooms, going to be both together, or are they going to be dispersed somewhat randomly or somewhat spaced apart wherever you have, excuse me, wherever you have 4 bedrooms or 1 bedrooms, or the 2 bedrooms that are going to be assigned?
I can answer that. They will be dispersed, so they're not necessarily going to be located together. That's part of the agreement as well, is that they need to be spread out.
Okay.
Okay. No other questions? Is the applicant present and do they wish to speak?
The applicant and the representative are present, and they are all there in the waiting room. It's Mr. Bill Hassan and Miss Amy Shepard. So Mr. Hassan and Miss Shepard, you can go ahead and unmute yourself at this time.
Hi, this is Amy Shepard.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, we're here just to answer any questions you guys might have.
Okay. Anyone, the commissioners have a question of the applicant?
I have a question, because I believe that the city doesn't do the applications for the low-income housing. I believe the developers are the ones that process the applications. Is that correct?
Do you know the answer to that?
I didn't get that. I'm sorry. I didn't. This is Bill Hassan. I did not get the question. Go ahead, please.
Do we process the applications for the low income?
Yeah, they
I
get
think-
processed the same way. All applicants get processed the same way. They get pre-qualified the same way.
Yeah, depending if whether or not they would be using a voucher, they would submit an application to qualify it on the basis of credit and no criminal background, et cetera.
Okay. And then how do you, do you send out an email to certain places that provide assistance, or how do you reach out to these people?
So in
You
the
have a
state, well, in the
website?
state of California, well, you mean how do we necessarily attract low-income families?
Yes.
I would say, based on my past experience, that those individuals present themselves the same as any other individual to see if there's a qualification. We do make notes in the advertising that there are low-income units available, so that information's public on the marketing that goes out, like on Zillow and Trulia and things like that. We also sign the MOU with the military so that we can place the military families. So there's a variety of ways to come in.
Okay. And then do you guys have like a website that they submit the applications to, or is it they just...
No, we don't have a specific website. The application is available online, but generally it's emailed in. We require 2 months of paycheck stubs, 2 months of bank statements, and a copy of their driver's license, along with a fee for screening credit.
Okay.
Commissioner Caraveo, the city also does require that the applicant provide a marketing plan that's spelled out in the density bonus housing agreement, so that also assists with at least the city being made knowledgeable about the process that the applicant's going to be using to get tenants.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Beshmessian, are there any documents to place into the administrative record, such as late communications?
I have not received. And Chris, I'm going to ask you if you have received any.
I haven't received anything.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any final comment on this item or questions for staff? If you don't, then do I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Maybe we have the call for the vote, please?
Yes. Chairperson Smith,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Al-Shidnapla is absent. Commissioner Ortiz,
Yes.
Commissioner Caraveo,
Yes.
and Commissioner Richard is absent. The motion passes 3-0.
Okay, thank you. Administrative items. There are no items. Commissioners' reports. Commissioners, you have anything you want to give a report on? No? Okay.
Oh, I just wanted to, thank all the commissioners and everybody for being able to have their time and join the meetings. These meetings are very important. And we know we are quarantining, so it's a different environment for us all. But I thank you guys for attending.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody too. Although we're missing 2 commissioners tonight, but that happens from time to time. But I really appreciate everybody being here and giving a lot of good thought into every project that we've ever had come across this. So if there isn't anything further from commissioners, meeting will be adjourned at 7:17. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.